Hi, I'm Lindsay Juergens, and this is Leaders Like Us. Thank you to our series sponsor, JBS, for supporting Leaders Like Us. Today, I'm with Dr. Marcy Chemnitz of CCC, Central Community College. Thank you so much for joining me today.
You're so welcome. Thank you for asking. What a neat opportunity. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so I wanted to make sure I got your job titles right.
Yes.
You are currently not only the campus president, but the vice president of Health
Sciences and Nursing.
Health Sciences
Yes.
and Nursing. See,
Yes.
I didn't even.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
But kind of like we talked about, it depends on what hat you're wearing at that time, kind of which
Correct.
way you're leaning on that.
Yeah.
All right. Can I call you Marcy?
You're fine. Yes, please.
All right.
Yeah.
Marcy.
Yeah.
You are in a very important role here locally in Grand Island and obviously the surrounding area. But can you kind of give us a backstory a little bit? What's like the summary of how you arrived here?
Sure. So my path is nowhere near linear. It kind of went all over the place. But just as a backdrop, I'm actually a South Dakota native. So born and raised, went to school, went to college there.
Okay.
I always say my growing up job was as a dietitian. So I was a registered dietitian for a number of years, went to college for that, practiced in a whole number of roles, but that's my healthcare side of the background. Having the fortunate to be able to work with such a huge population of people transitioned me more into, I wanted the education piece, which then stumbled into working with the University of South Dakota in their School of Medicine, running their dietetic internship program. So I got to still do what I liked, but also started to get into the realm of education. The same time was offered the ability to work on my doctorate at USD, which completing that right before I left here, got the job here at Central Community College, and actually started off as the Dean of Health Sciences for Central on the Hastings campus, serving college-wide, and then kind of got more into the overall educational administration role. After completing the doctorate, it fit really well. It was a good move for our family to come here. And then that transition to dean for about 7 years and really understanding the college, healthcare professions, and then was offered this role to move into the campus president role here in Grand Island overall for the Grand Island campus, and then maintain that involvement with the health sciences and nursing from a vice president role. So it fit really well.
Yeah.
But it certainly wasn't a path that I would have thought even 20 years ago that this was ever an option. I always say I was a first generation college student that didn't do particularly well in college. I wasn't set up well to succeed. But over the years and trying different things and just sometimes being at the right place at the right time, things have fallen into place. And I'm so honored to get to work with a lot of people who helped me along the way and a fair amount of mentoring to even get to this point. So
I really love that. I love that you even are willing to share, like, hey, I wasn't necessarily the best student or was set up in the best ways to necessarily anticipate success.
exactly.
But what would you, so how did you make it then?
That's a very good question. I'm not exactly sure, in all honesty. It's one of those things where you look back and a lot of reflection, particularly as you watch students go through now and think, wow, how did that come around? I think basically just a certain level of perseverance. It was something I felt was important to finish college. I'm not exactly sure why, other than since my parents weren't graduates. And I felt like this was a way to go different directions, and I just stuck to it long enough. It took me 4.5 years. But then, and then as I got into my career and realized I wanted something more, I enjoyed the dietetics realm, but felt like there was something else out there and wanted to continue to learn and had different opportunities. And in fairness, of full support from my family of going back to school multiple times.
Yeah.
This was not an easy road for them, my husband or our kids, to do that. But I think just through some perseverance of trying to get through it, but it was not easy. And I think of students nowadays and the resources they have, but that it's okay. And not everybody thinks that they're made out to be a student. But I always say, if I can navigate through, anybody can. Anybody can do this. So
I say the same thing. I was also an adult learner.
Oh, yeah.
When I got my bachelor's degree, I had already had my 3 kids, but I think I'm hearing kind of the same thing. At least for me, I really wanted to make sure that my kids saw me have some tenacity about it and
that you can do both.
overcome those challenges. Yes. Yeah, and specifically to CCC, you have full range of students, right? You have fresh out of high school, and then you have well into adulthood learners.
Correct.
Sometimes switching gears completely from one career to another. And I always feel so admiring of those individuals, because it takes a certain amount of bravery
Yes.
to say, I think I want to try something new, and I might be in my 40s or 50s and totally opening a new chapter. That takes bravery.
Yes. And a matter of fact, I just visited with a gal yesterday. We had new student orientation, and we ran into each other just after that. And we were visiting, and she shared with me her age and that she wants to go back to college. And she said, but I just don't know. And I said, oh, I do. You'll be fine. We serve all students.
Yeah.
And I said, but the courage. I said, thank
Yeah.
you for your courage of wanting to do this. This is not an easy step to want to jump back into something that feels relatively uncomfortable.
Yeah, no
Especially
kidding.
at an age that is not. Well, for most people feel it's traditional. For us, that's very traditional.
Right.
But
Right.
that's what I also liked about Central was coming from a university, their role in mission's a little bit different. I liked this as Central of we serve all ages. Our focus truly is on how do we make our students successful? What is it? How do we meet them where they are?
I love that.
And then get them to where they want to be and where they want to go.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's extraordinary
I love it so much.
opportunity. Yeah.
Right, right. And you're the right person for the job. I also love that you advocated for your remaining in the work of, nursing, healthcare. You wanted to be in that. What does that work look like for you specifically?
Sure. So it's one that changes constantly.
Okay.
I think most fields, professional roles do change.
Yeah.
I think health sciences and nursing, or the combination, probably changes one of the fastest and the most often.
That makes sense.
And trying to balance the caliber of student and making sure that we maintain our rigor and expectation in a program. But we also want to make sure students are successful and that they get employed after. And I think the community relies on us to make sure that our students that we graduate have the experience and the knowledge and background to be good practitioners.
Right.
And I would say health science is a little bit different in that we also are responsible for our students from an accreditation standpoint. They all have their own separate accrediting bodies for their programs, and those types of expectations, as well as supporting the student through. But the types of things healthcare offers in a variety of different roles and programs and areas that our students can go into, it's just phenomenal, and
Yeah.
that continues to change. And particularly here in Grand Island, with the growth of different healthcare facilities, the second hospital has really expanded what we can do in our health programs and our educational programs for what our students can do,
Right.
and therefore how that impacts the kind of programs that we offer, and then maintaining them. So because the healthcare field changes regularly, we too
Right.
have to in our programs make sure, making sure we're teaching what they're currently doing and what they're going to be doing in the next couple of years, which continues to be a
Right.
challenge.
Yeah, you probably have to have a pretty strong forecasting ability, or an attempt to have
Exactly.
a forecasting ability.
Yes.
What a challenge that
And
must be.
It is, and having a good relationship with our different facilities, because truly without the various hospitals, not only in Grand Island, but the surrounding communities, we couldn't do the programs that we do because we need them as much as often they need our graduates. So it's a really
Definitely.
nice partnership. And they help us kind of guide as to this is what we're seeing in healthcare, this is what's coming down the pike. So we appreciate that because it's an equal partnership for us as well.
Right. I think that that's probably a great little glimpse into why having a community that is willing to have the different elements work together is
Exactly.
so important for the success of our community members.
I think so, 100%. You say it well. And I think we often say that's why as community is our middle name, because that's what we do. Yes, as a community college, but in any of our programs, we are only as successful as the people that we get to work with and the community that we serve.
Sure.
Without that, we wouldn't be nearly or able to be as effective or meeting our mission of maximizing student and community success without partners and being in our communities.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a neat part of the job that I get to help with is being in the community and sharing, or having the honor of sharing a lot of the good things that we do and our successes
I love that.
from my perspective. So
That's so cool. And I think that, I feel like at a high school level also, you're really fantastic at working with those ramping up to college, right? So you
Yes.
have, I don't know, you just have this huge scope of individuals that are affected by CCC. So what does that look like for high school students that are involved in programs and CCC?
Yeah, good question. So that's actually one of the areas we focus on is our early college students. And we know that students who are engaged in high school and have a chance to see the opportunities that are there and as well as hopefully get some credits while they're in high school, are
Right.
more likely to go on to education, and we find are more likely to be successful in college because they've had a good experience with it, or hopefully a good experience in high school.
Right.
And I think also helping them get those credentials and those credits early on, so they spend less time and hopefully less money when they're with us. And
Yeah.
I would say wherever they go, they may not choose to stay with CCC, but the credits that they take with us are transferable most often to any of our colleges.
Right.
So it's a huge part of what we do of that educational experience with getting the students feeling more comfortable with it, and not only that, and comfortable in a place that they're already comfortable with, often with the dual credit at the high school. Some of them come to us at that same time, but developing that early so they build the confidence on the ability to be successful in a place that's a little more comfortable to them, and then moving on when they want to graduate and take those credits and go a different direction too.
Right. I
So a
love
huge
it.
part of what we do.
Yeah, one thing that I think is so cool about CCC in particular, well, there's a lot that I think is cool about it, but
Thank you.
yeah, I'm not being paid by Marcy.
I know,
by
go
the way,
figure,
but-
right? Just give you a good commercial right there.
But I am a fan because I shared with you my oldest received his certification as an EMT before he even finished high school, and that helped to set him up for his next steps. And I think that folks should be really aware of how versatile your programming is. And to your point also, no matter what your future steps are, you can kind of choose your path. You can choose your level of what you're expecting to get into. Maybe you're just wanting a certificate for something very particular or technical. I think that your versatility is one of your greatest strengths.
Thank you. Yes, and I agree. I also, too, what I like to tell people, because often I don't think, if you've never had a reason to engage with Central Community College, people often don't realize the scope of what we do. Understandable. And not only the scope, but the opportunity that it brings. And we have some awesome employees, backgrounds and education. I would rival them even at a university setting.
Yeah.
Granted, we don't have the research side of it, but what our instructors have for a background is wonderful. And having those opportunities for students and at a reasonable cost. What are we, $112 a credit hour? And all of our general education, the majority transfer. So it's not like, it's not the
amazing.
same caliber. And as well as the flexibility in some of our career and technical programs, not only in health sciences, but our other side of some of our technical programs, whether it be in Grand Island, whether it be in Hastings, each of our campuses have certain unique programs that they offer only there.
Yeah.
But giving that opportunity for students that may have different ideas or opportunities or thoughts on where they want to go. And some, like we talked about with your son, may start out in something and go, yeah, no, this is not for me.
Right.
And it's easy enough for us to shift and say, okay, let's see what that next semester look like. Even so, we have some that come from welding right into nursing into
Sure.
welding. So it always amazes me that sometimes, like we said, knowing what you don't want to do is as important as what you want to do.
I say that all the time, and I really believe it. It's also kind of fun to take a step back from something and go, I don't like it.
Right.
You know,
It's
that's
not what I thought.
okay.
Right. It's not what I thought.
It's so important to know that.
Yes, and that's normal. It's typical.
is.
And the freedom to be able to do that and not feel like you're judged or like you made a
Or
mistake.
you're a failure.
You're a failure.
My
You didn't
gosh.
go, oh, heavens no.
Yeah.
And we see many of our students that start, stop, come back, change a little bit. And that's the other part of it is how flexible we are with that. You want
Yeah.
to take a semester off, and I just talked to a student this last week who mentioned to me that he's coming back this semester. He said, but I can't take the full loading. I can't,
sure.
I can't manage it with my family. He said, so I have to take less credits. And he was almost a little sad saying it.
Oh.
And I said, oh gosh, that's not a sad thing. That's a good thing. Good for you for recognizing
Yeah.
that you may need to step back and there's too many things you're trying to juggle in this thing called life, let alone trying to
Yeah.
take classes and feel like you're making a difference. I said, we're here. We'll always be here.
That's
so
right.
Take your time.
I feel like you're touching on something that I feel is so important, and it's not just what you might be pursuing in education, but as a staff member, you seem to be really, really great at recognizing that individuals are a whole human. They don't show up as a student and leave their entire being at home, right? They have thoughts going on, they have family issues, perhaps financial struggles, all kinds of things. And as a leader in your organization, you seem to be really great at looking at your staff members with that same tone of respect. You understand that these are whole individuals.
Right.
And they show up to work and they're doing their job, but they didn't stop being a mom or stop being a daughter
Right.
or a neighbor when they arrived at work that morning.
Right.
And can you speak a little bit about that? Like, you seem to practice that well.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. It's one of the things that I think is important as either a leader or working with people is people have lives outside of work, and sometimes very complicated, messy, heavy,
Sure.
heavy stuff. And I always think since we spend a great deal of time at our employer, at our job, it kind of becomes a sign of a second family. But what happens outside of work certainly impacts what happens at work and vice versa.
Yeah.
And I want employees to feel like it's okay. I recognize we are all humans, the human condition, I always say. It's just sometimes messy. And feeling like they're still accepted. We all go through them. We all have times when things outside of work are not always great.
Yeah.
But also that they feel supported, and also since this is the same thing we practice with our students, we should be practicing it amongst each other. And I think a
Bingo.
certain amount of grace to be able to say, today's not a great day. Maybe tomorrow will be, but
Right.
today isn't. And
Right.
what does that look like, and how can we help each other so that we can get through those times and still serve our students, but know life happens and it isn't always pretty, but it's important that we support each other during those times. And like I said, have some grace for days that just aren't always great.
Right. Right. We are not robots.
We are not robots. No,
Yeah.
No. And sometimes it's just not a good day, or it's just too many things going on at one time. But again, that mirrors a lot of what our students. So I think that empathy and understanding not only carries to our students, but should carry with us as one another, because really we're all doing the same types of things. It's just navigating through lots of different waters, and some are dealing with more things at one time than somebody else.
That's
and
a
that
fact.
changes.
Yeah.
And so how best do we support one another and create an environment where there's not a judgment on that? That's just, let's see how we can get through it together.
I love that.
Yeah.
What a fabulous leadership perspective on your part. One thing that you have happening right now, anyway, is that you're on the board for the Grand Island Area Chamber of Commerce.
Yes.
So you are invested in this community in multiple ways. Why would you choose to be on the chamber? Why are you in Grand Island? Why does this community matter to you?
Yeah, well, on many levels. First, obviously honored to serve on the chamber board. It is, and honor is the right word. It is to get to see what goes on in the full view and picture of Grand Island, and work along other leaders from different areas, different industries, different businesses, and to see collectively the passion and the drive to want to make Grand Island and continue to be an extraordinary place to be is truly been a treat for me, and as well as learning from them as well. It's amazing when you listen to a conversation of 10 or 11, 12 people who come from all different areas. There's things I learned going, oh, I
Right.
would not have thought about that, or I didn't realize that would make an impact like it does from a business perspective, or, being education's a little bit different kind of business, hearing that. But also then being able to be at, for lack of a better word, the forefront of how do we help Grand Island continue to move in that positive direction? What does it look like? What does the community need? And then how do we help with that and help bring the voice of businesses through the chamber for what their needs are, and bring that forward in through Grand Island. So it's been a unique experience and look at Grand Island in a different perspective, different lens, if you will.
Right.
But truly, I think this is my 6th year, so I'm getting close to rotating off, which I'm going to miss it. I'm going to miss it a lot in terms of the honor of working with different people.
I'm sure.
And even other boards and things that I'm involved with bring that unique perspective and help even more of a buy-in into Grand Island, and also then bringing central to those conversations,
Right.
not only me, but the college, and helping other people to see this is what we do, this is how we do. How can we do what we do for you, and in what ways? So it's been a really great partnership.
What a great point you make about, so in general, when you're sitting around a table having a discussion about planning what's best for our community, what an important point you make about having the different perspectives in those conversations.
very much.
If it is all one lane, you are missing so much information, so much pertinent information to your planning process, really, no matter what we're talking about.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And the level of impact, something that may
Yes.
not impact us necessarily from an education or college perspective, has a significant impact on another large business,
Sure.
or and vice versa. And understanding that, because my role is not as a business per se, since we're more educational, And I think they're also then hearing from what impact that has to education and also what role we can play in that. And so I think everybody gets a better understanding of each other and just their overall, just different views, just different understanding of, I wouldn't have seen it that way, but now that we talk about it, that makes perfect sense. How do we navigate that going further? And just, I think a camaraderie and from each other's support and valuing the opinions, but knowing that we collectively, how does this look like going forward?
Right.
Yeah.
In respect of.
And respect of each other in those conversations and in respect of, and I think the overall goal is, how do we make Grand Island continue to be better?
Yes.
It's a great place. How do we make that even better? How do we attract a workforce to want to come work here and not only work here, thrive and enjoy living in Grand Island? That is at the end of the day what we're all wanting to do.
That's the big bottom line.
Right.
Well, looping back to the Grand Island piece, you mentioned you're from South Dakota.
Right.
And here you are, years later, definitely regarded as a community leader. But why here? Why are you staying here? Why do you invest in this community? What's your why?
Sure. Couple reasons. One, I love still being in the Midwest. It's close enough for home. I get to come back to my family in South Dakota. I still have that good connection.
Yeah.
But I have thoroughly enjoyed being in Nebraska, and as equally enjoyable about being in Grand Island. It was truly a good experience moving. We originally moved to Hastings when we came here, and then moved here for this position into Grand Island. And having already been a little bit familiar with Grand Island, it gave me a great opportunity to even learn more and understand, and then the involvement in the community. So obviously one is because of my job and seeing what Central does and in the community and watching our students be successful, but also seeing it from being involved in different organizations of everybody's passionate about Grand Island. I understand why. Seeing the really good community that Grand Island is and the focus on how do we help people do what they do, how do we help continue to move going forward, and seeing the investment in Grand Island, the commitment that people have, the commitment of what types of things can we do to improve and invite more people into Grand Island. It's a very nice size city for me, coming from a very larger community, even larger than Hastings, has a wider variety of things to do, and one of our boys still lives here in Grand Island, so we get to still continue to see him on a regular basis. Just been a very good community for my husband and I, and having the kind of position that allows me and supports and encourages me to be involved in the community has made that even more enriching had I not had those opportunities, and to learn more about Grand Island, and more than anything, get the honor of working with a wide variety of people who you get to know and you get to see somewhat on a regular basis. That's what makes it so enjoyable.
It's probably pretty fun too.
Very fun.
To see the, like we were speaking about before we started filming, seeing the successes. So seeing those students graduate, seeing them overcome their challenges and persevere. I mean, what a blast.
It is, and it's really fun when you're out in the community and somebody, or if I'll have something, my name tag on, or say, oh, you're from Central, and the stories that I hear, and even more so, we always have a booth at the State Fair, for example.
Yeah.
It is one of the best experiences to spend several hours at a booth. The number of people that come by, talk about their stories. I'm a graduate, I had a child that went there, or I took a community ed class, and listening to how we impacted them through just those conversations. It's extraordinary every year to listen to it, and that adds even more layer of look at the impact that we are able to do in Grand Island, around Grand Island, and seeing that our graduates and people that have interacted with us and have had great experiences. It just is even more empowering on that aspect by itself.
I love that. Yeah. I do love hearing people's why. That's really, really cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Marcy. I know Dr. Chemnitz, Marcy, Dr. Chemnitz. I know you're in the trenches of we're back to school, lots of things happening. Fall is nonstop, but you took time to share some of the background, the reasons why, and I really, really appreciate that. Thank you for what you're doing in this community too.
Thank you, and I really appreciate the opportunity. This is wonderful, the work that you do and inviting different leaders in, and I think we all learn from one another. I always say leadership is a journey. I have not reached the top,
ending.
And it continues to change and learn and adapt, and in these kind of conversations as well as hearing others is always helpful to me as well. So thank you, because it takes time out for you to do that as well, and I'm truly honored to have spent the morning, so thank you.
Thank you. All right. Well, I am Lindsay Juergens. This is Dr. Marcy Chemnitz. Again, thank you to our series sponsor, JBS, Thank you for watching Leaders Like Us.